Alright guys, welcome back to Landmark Fishing Adventures. I'm Nathan, and who out there doesn't want to catch more fish? So today, I'm going to share with you my top 5 tips to help you catch more fish in 2025. Alright, let's get into it. Alright, so tip number 1, structure. I found fishing structure to really help up my fishing. If you just go down to the beach and just chuck your bait anywhere, yeah, you'll probably catch fish, but you're a lot less likely to than if you have a certain structure that you're targeting and you're casting around. Structure is really important to fish. It's somewhere they like to hang out. It's where little bait fish congregate around, so that in turn brings in the bigger predators who want a bit of a feed. It also can become a place where predators come to rest as well. So you'll see predatory fish like Samson fish and mulloway I've seen before. They're just sitting under ledges or sitting under a rock wall. If you've ever been out to like Exmouth, for example, or the Ningaloo Reef, I've seen plenty of times you go snorkeling and around kind of like the more sandy parts where there's not as much reef, and you might see the odd fish, but if you come across a nice big bommy, all of a sudden there's tons of fish surrounding that bommy and just sitting under there, and fish of all different sizes as well. So finding that structure can be really important. And then the other thing you need to know is what type of structure the fish that you're targeting likes to hang out in. For example, if you're targeting sand whiting, then those more open sand flats are going to be a better structure for sand whiting. They don't mind coming out onto them. Whereas brim, for example, they will come out onto those more open flats, but they also like to sit around like bridge pylons, and they like to sit nice and close to them as well. So then you want to try and fish as close as you can to that structure there. Finding out what structure your fish likes, and then going and locating that structure as well. If I'm fishing surf beaches, there's a few things you can do. You try to get up high on the dunes if you can, have a look. Polarized sunglasses can also be really good for identifying structure. And the other thing you can do if you have a drone, pop your drone up and then just have a look to see what structure exists there. And that can also be really helpful in identifying little holes, maybe gutters, and just helps you have a better idea of some areas that might hold fish and where you can try. Another place you can look that I like to use is Google Maps. So go on Google Maps, have a look along the coastline, see if you can't see little bits of structure that might look like they'll hold fish, and that's another way that you can kind of scout out areas without having to drive around. Once you've located and marked a few different areas you might want to try, it's always a good idea to scout them out. And bear in mind, low tide and high tide will change what you can see in an area. So if you can go to a place on low tide, you're probably more likely to see some of those features that you might be looking for structure-wise. And a beach can also look extremely different structure-wise from low and high tide as well. Obviously then, as you have storms come in over the winter, that will also change the outlook of the beach as well. All things to bear in mind when you're thinking about where to fish structure-wise. Tip number 2, fishing bite times. So I think fishing bite times can be really important and can have a big effect on how the fish behave and when they feed. In order to find them, you can either just go get one of those like angler almanacs, or what I normally do is just look up on Google these days, fishing bite times, and then go on one of those websites and they'll have a list of major and minor bite times. You've normally got 2 minor and 2 major bite times in a day. And so what this will tell you is it'll give you about a 2-hour period where the fish are likely to be feeding. And that's all calculated on a variety of things to do with the tides, to do with the moon phase. There's a few different things that help to determine that, but I've definitely found them to be quite accurate and quite effective indicators of when the fish feed. There's been times where I've been out fishing with my mate Bev, who swears by bite times, and he's been like, at the middle of the bite time, that's when the mulloway is going to hit, and almost to the absolute minute that the middle of the bite time is, he's had a hit from mulloway, hooked up, and then he's landed big mulloway on that bite time. I definitely swear by bite times. I think that they're definitely something you should look at and consider. Now, of course, sometimes you just need to get out there and have a fish. So if they don't line up, that's okay. Just get out there and give it a try anyway. I don't really rate the star system. There's like 4 stars. You've got like excellent down to like poor. And I feel like that isn't as accurate as the actual bite times themselves. I've been out on days where it's meant to be 1 star, so really poor, and I've caught big mulloway. And then I've been out on days where it's meant to be 4 stars and excellent, and I've caught absolutely nothing but a cold. So I don't really go by that system as much. I'm mainly just looking at the bite times and then trying to fish around those bite times, especially when that middle bite time period occurs. but just trying to fish over that 2-hour period, I think you are increasing your chances. Tip number 3. Now, this is something that I'm trying to get better at, and I feel like I have been better at, but I'm not the best at it. So this is something I'm trying to improve personally, and that is using burley. Now, use of burley can be super effective in helping to draw fish into the area that you're fishing. Just recently, we were up fishing for herring, and there was pretty much like no herring around. As soon as we started burleying up, it brought all the herring in, and there were people next to us or just across from where we were fishing, and they were catching like nothing. And we were just on the opposite side of the jetty to them, not that far away, burleying up, and we were getting just herring after herring after herring, and it was just crazy. And it was that wild that the herring were actually just smashing the burley off of the surface as well. So burley can be really important in helping bring fish in and also fire the fish up to get into a feeding mood, get them really excited if they are in the area as well. You have any old bait, take it back with you if you've got space, chuck it in the freezer and then use it for next time. You can also use like fish frames. So if maybe you've got a load of tailor and you fill up the tailor, you've got the fish frames left, instead of just chucking them in to the sea, take them back, stick them in the freezer, and then next time just stick them in a bag. That's something I'm trying to improve at more this year, but it definitely works. So something to keep in mind. Tip number 4 is fresh bait. You want to use as fresh as bait as you possibly can. The saying always goes, fresh is best, okay? Now, I'm not saying that you can't catch fish on old bait, but the fresher your bait is, the more likely the fish is going to be attracted to it. It's going to smell more natural, and you're going to be able to get that bite and that hook up. A few months ago now, I went out fishing, and before we went out, we were meant to be going out for a bit of a 4B and a fish that night, and I had the afternoon off. So I went out and I caught a load of whiting, and then when we went out fishing later on, I used that fresh whiting and I caught a mulloway on that fresh whiting. I definitely think that it increases your chances using fresh bait. Now, I know that it's not always possible to get out, catch some fresh bait beforehand, or while you're there even. You know, the sun might be setting and you don't want to be missing your chance trying to mess around catching fresh bait when, you know, you're at that prime time to be catching those bigger fish. If you do need to buy frozen bait, there are a few things you can do, especially with muleys. Try and look in the eyes of the muley. You can see if their eyes are kind of real glazed over and like almost like frozen looking, it probably means that muley's been in there for a very long time. Also try and check to see if the skin is like intact. If that skin is like all kind of scuffed and it looks gross, it's probably not going to last very long. And this is saying, especially with muleys, I find they can be really, really bad bait if they've gone off. They'll just be like flying off your hook. Just check over that, try and get the freshest packet that you can possible, and that will just help to improve the quality of the muleys you have. Hopefully will stay on that little bit longer and be that little bit fresher. So always have a dig around and kind of have a look at those things, the skin and the eyes, if you are buying muleys from the servo. The other thing you can do is if you do have a good session and you catch a load of herring or whiting, you can always take them home and then just vacuum seal them for bait later on as well and put them in the freezer. So there are a few things you can do. That way you're not trying to get fresh bait on the night if you can't as well. So always have that kind of backup. You've got something to pull out just in case. Now, there is an important caveat I want to make with this as well. Make sure that you do buy prawns that are bait prawns, okay? Don't just go to the supermarket and buy some prawns, as there are problems with a disease called white spot. If you use prawns that aren't from Australia and aren't meant for bait, then that can actually spread that disease into our waterways and affect our crustaceans. So a really important caveat there with prawns, make sure that you do use prawns that are meant for bait only. My 5th and final tip for the video is to travel. So obviously there's a lot of people in the metro area that fish. So my recommendation would be, if you can, try and explore. And when you're out exploring, maybe you're away with the family over Easter or whatever it is, go have a flick. You never know. There's a lot less pressure on these other areas of Australia because obviously there's so many people fishing the metro area. Now, of course, not all of us can get away, and especially not every weekend. If you're a regular fisher like I am, then some things you can do in the metro area to help improve your catch rate is to look for areas that are inaccessible or hard to get to. Just areas that are really difficult, that other people can't be bothered walking 2Ks to, and maybe you can't get your four-wheel drive there, but you're gonna walk 2Ks up the beach. Yeah, it's a long way. Yeah, it might be frustrating if you come back and you don't get anything from that trip, but the more that you're willing to put yourself out and make yourself uncomfortable, the less likely other people are gonna do that too. And therefore, the greater likelihood that that fishing population is gonna have had less pressure on it over time. Don't be afraid to become a little bit uncomfortable. Don't be afraid to walk long distances. It does then tie into trying to pack light where you can, something that I probably also need to try and improve, because I just try and take I'm always like, oh, what if I need this? What if I need this? But just try and pack as light as you can, and don't be afraid to walk. And when you put that in conjunction with that earlier tip of scouting out different areas and different locations that might hold structure, you can kind of combine the two there and hopefully find some good spots, and then you might have success in these areas as well. I've seen great spots over the years. The access has been made easier, therefore more people have been able to fish it, and then the spot has become worse, okay? So that's not to blame anyone in particular, but all I am saying is when a spot is harder to get to, then the fishing is likely to be a lot better than when it becomes easier for people to get to. There you go, guys. Those are my 5 tips for beach fishing success in 2025. Now, I'm not the fountain of all knowledge. I'm sure you guys have plenty of tips of your own. Please jump in the comments, let me know your tips, and let everyone else know your tips as well. As a fishing community, we're all trying to get better together. Not one of us is a perfect fisherman. We're all learning, we're all growing, and there's no way that in my lifetime I'm ever gonna learn all there is to know about fish. So if we work together as a community and help each other out, definitely we'll become more knowledgeable fishermen and become better fishermen as well. And we'll be able to learn from each other as well. So make sure you jump in the comments. Thank you so much for watching the video. Hopefully you got something out of it, and I'll catch you guys next time on Landmark Fishing Adventures.